Hello, I'm Bhavik. I'm an intern with UW, and formally, this is just a command line interface to interact with S3 storage services. And in this case, that includes Kopah, like Nam was talking about. So informally, what that means for you is this is what you use when you have the task of like, hey, I have some resources on Hayak that I want to move to Kopah, or vice versa. I have something on Kopah that I want to move to Hayak. And the nice thing is that this works on both Hayak and also your local machine. So if there's, if for example, you're building a presentation or you want some data on your laptop, you can pull that straight from Kopah using this command line. And so in some sense, it's independent from Hayak. And so that's also very nice. Cool. Okay, so why did we choose S3 command? There's a few reasons. The first set is that it's free, open source, cross-platform, and it's also widely adopted. And the nice thing about that is that you have a lot of documentation available. There's a lot of questions online. There's a lot of answers online. There's a pretty vast community because the majority of people that have their own independent or even like corporate cloud providing S3 APIs will also use S3 command. And so if you ever have any troubles, it's pretty easy to find the answers, and you never get locked into like, hey, once you started using this, this is the only thing you can use starting now. It's obviously S3 compatible everywhere. So if you decide that this is something you want to get experienced in or use frequently in your automation scripts and such, it's pretty simple to transfer the knowledge to any S3 compatible storage. And then obviously it's, like I mentioned, it's great for automation. So a quick overview, it will be a little bit technical, but I described why we might want to use this. But next I'll go into the installation, the setup, its usage and extensions. And really the point of this is if you have a laptop out, you can set it up right now with me. And if you wanted to set it up and try it out. And the other thing is just to show how easy it is to move to Kopah and interacting with that file service rather than through Hayak. And so earlier I was describing that we have this on Hayak and your local machine. And if you want to install this on your own laptop, you would open up your own terminal, you would not SSH onto the cluster. And you have a few choices on installing this. So you can go to the website, which is over here, and then run a few steps. If you have Homebrew installed, you can install it as a brew package, which is pretty easy. And then if you have your Python environment like shaped up to sudo install things, you can also get it from the Python package authority. And then if you do that, you'll see that if you run this help command, it will give you actual help and instead of like throwing an error. Instead of walking through this, I know that it's already installed on all the login nodes and the compute nodes for Hayak. So if you wanted to use it, you could use it today. And so I'll have everyone who wants to follow along just to open up a login node since it's already going to be there.
And we have everyone that registered. We gave you a Kopah account with 1 terabyte in storage for 3 months. And so Bhavik is going to walk you through how to start using that.
Okay. So in some ways, you can view the setup as 3 steps. So what Kristen is talking about is that you have your own access keys and your secret keys, and those tie into like authenticating with Kopah and saying, hey, I am an authenticated user and I have this much space here. And you know, I have like these keys stored on or like in the storage system. And so the command line interface is going to read from a config file, which you're going to place in your home directory. So that's where you spawn. Generally, if you haven't changed anything when you log into Hayak, and you're going to call that s3 config. I wouldn't make it yet since there's an easier way to do this. It's going to read that, and inside there, it's going to be like, hey, I'm using Kopah, and then you're going to say, on top of that, these are my access codes, and this is my secret key. And so you can see in the middle here, we have like some of the configuration that you would set up into this file. And then you would add the keys that you have in your home directory. So if you have Hayak up, you can, and you're in your home directory, you can run ls to list all the files available. And in there, like Kristen was mentioning, there should be one named Kopah, underscore your group's name, and that will contain the 2 secret codes. But instead of all of this, the easier way to set it up is if you go to SW, Hayak 101, which is where we keep. Oh, we aren't logged in. Okay, and I'm going to run this just for quick demonstration. If you're not running it yourself, just to look at what the setup might look like for someone who is transferring to using the CLI. Okay, so like I was talking about, there will be, where is it? Oh, right here. That's just going to exist in your home directory. That will have all the secrets, which I will not expose. But I have some fake stuff here. So it'll kind of look like that. So you're like, okay, these are the 2 things I need. And then if you want to set it up, I would cat, so basically read out the contents of the file like that. And then you can run a quick script, which is in our tutorial folder, called setup, s3cmd. And then you can just copy the access keys, paste them there, copy the secret key, paste it when it asks you to. And that will do everything that was outlined in these steps for you. So you don't have to think about, hey, this is the configuration. That configuration file has to go in my home directory. It needs to contain this information. There's no quotes around access key or whatever. So if you do, this is it. You read the file and you copy paste a few things, and that should be all. And the nice thing is, once you're done with that, you're fully synced up to use Kopah, and that's all you need. And so I guess we haven't really explained what S3 storage is, but you can think of it as just a collection of buckets. And a bucket is kind of like a directory, but it's not. It just stores a bunch of objects, where objects can be your files or your directories and such. And so generally this is used for organization, but you do need a bucket to place objects in. The commands themselves are relatively intuitive. MB is for make bucket, ls is to list buckets. If you list on a bucket, you list all the objects within the bucket, kind of like a directory. So if my data file has all the files, and then you can remove a bucket as empty with RB. And then really quick, I want to point out what the naming convention for buckets in S3 usually is. You have, including Kopah, you can only use a set of lowercase characters, numbers, dots, and dashes. If you put an underscore, that's not going to work. If you use an uppercase character, that's not going to work. It has to fit that, and it also has to be a minimum of 3 characters. So if you run into errors, it's kind of annoying. It doesn't even indicate that you would have it, so you would kind of run into hello, where I have a capital H. Oh, that's not right. It will just be like invalid bucket name. That not particularly helpful. Okay.
Bhavik,
Yes.
could we just pause for a second? I still have a few hands.
Oh, sorry. Yes. I'll take questions in between. Yes.
I was curious, are you able to have multiple access keys, even keys going at once, or will you always have to switch out?
One key should give you access to your own buckets, and I think you can
Multiple buckets.
Oh, yes, sorry. Each key you can open as many buckets as you want.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Different account. Like I had previously granted under the group an allocation.
Yeah.
Well, they granted under my username an allocation. Will those overlap, or are those 2 separate things?
I think it depends on how the keys are set up, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you can either allocate a set of like a bunch of keys for the exact same bucket. So if you want to give everyone in your lab access to the same buckets, but also individual keys, you can have that happen. Or you can have each key independently mapped to its own bucket. So if you have like, for example, your group account and your individual account, those buckets don't overlap. But you can have them, like, you can have the same 2 keys point to the same place if you want it to.
If I reset up my S3 command to point to the new one that was just granted to me, or this, am I going to have to repeat that process?
Yeah,
while you go back to
that's right. You would have a full set of different buckets now, because Kopah thinks you're someone else, basically. Because you don't have a name, you have your access key, right? Yes.
So what's the name of the file that's supposed to be in our home directory to access the 1 terabyte? Is it?
Yeah.
Is it? It just appeared there.
Yes, it should be called Kopah underscore your group's name. It might be an ID. That's what it is for me.
Because I have an old file there that was put there a couple months ago when I was given access to a group. But for this 1 terabyte, is that a separate?
So if you were already part of an existing Kopah group, then we didn't give you another terabyte.
Okay,
You just have your like previous account already. Okay. Yeah. Kelly, in your case, I think the Bumble Room account, we stopped it because of the new naming convention that you guys are following. So you should just use the one that's for your 10 ID. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
That's yeah.
So I guess only expect this if you don't have a Kopah account right now.
And if your group does have a Kopah account and you were previously given keys, it should be Kopah underscore the group name for that.
So once you have a bucket, is it like any other typical file structure, folder, subfolder, 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 ad infinitum?
That's right. Yeah, I think each bucket has like a capacity of like 100 million objects or something. So it is effectively like you can store whatever you want in there, and you can have, nested directories and such. It functions the exact same as most file systems would.
Is a bucket a file system, or are they really different concepts?
A bucket is, so Kopah is really or like S3 is just a key value store. So you say like my key is ABCD, and that maps to like a bunch of values. And so your bucket is actually just a key saying like these are the set of things that I want to access. And so if I have like 5 files, I'm going to map them within ABCD, and like that's called a bucket, and it's also called a key, and it's just like how you indicate that these are the ones I'm referencing. Yeah. You also use it for organization if you want. So in some senses, you can think of it as the simplest way is just another directory, right? So each project can have its own bucket, or you can have all the projects within one bucket, like whatever works.
Yeah. Basic question. I assume all the slides you're showing here will be available.
Yes, I will make sure this is available. I think this is everything you'll ever need to like make stuff work. So
The help of s3cmd also has an examples section.
Yeah.
Right there.
there's a bunch of things. This is kind of I find it kind of messy. I would look up s3 command like on the browser. That's more readable. Okay. Yes, sorry.
So no, it's just a basic idea. Sorry, I had to look this up ahead of time. But in the group scenario, is there an ls-lh or something, ls-la, so you can see who in your group has created or deleted?
That's a good question. I don't think that's something that you can do with these.
Okay.
So generally, I think the convention is to prefix file names with who owns the thing. I mean, there's features to get that to work, but as for figuring out who modified a file or who created a file, I don't think that's something that's easily accessible.
We can find out later.
Yeah.
Show that.
Okay. And so those are the buckets, and buckets have objects. And so objects have their own set of commands. And those are just, if you want, they're just put and get. So I want to put this file onto Kopah. I want to get this file from Kopah. And you can obviously do that with just one file, or you can do it with 5 files or like 100 files. And then every time you put something, you want to specify which bucket you're putting that into. And so if, for example, in the case you have a bucket and then a few set of nested directories, you specify the entire path over there. So it works just like a path, but you put s3 : / in front of it. And I will demonstrate this really quick if we want to. So I have 2 files called file 1 and file 2. And first, I guess I'll do ls. I have a folder or a bucket called demo. I think if you can clarify, there's no one else can make a bucket called demo, right? Okay, yeah. So each of each bucket has an independent name because it's a key. Like keys have to be unique. So again, like I was talking about this idea of prefixing, you just want to put like your net ID or your group name dash the thing you want to call the bucket. Basically that keeps everything independent, and that it's like I own this thing. And so my demo bucket is empty because listing it gives me an output of nothing. But if I did want to move stuff, I can use this put command. So s3cmd put, and then I list the two files. And in this case, I'll demonstrate that you can use like wildcards and stuff just to be like everything that starts with file dash in this current directory is what I want to move. And so I can move like a giant set of files at the same time into demo. And then you can see it will tell us what happened. And I uploaded file 1 to Kopah, and I uploaded file 2 to Kopah. And now if I list again, everything's over there. And so I just made redundant copies of whatever I had locally on Kopah. And now if I want to share this, or if I go to any other laptop, this will exist as long as I have the keys. If it's linked to your group, everyone in the group has access to it. And if I wanted to make these files public, I just run one more command and they're public. And so really quick for sharing and redundancy.
Does it use a status if it's a giant file?
Yes, that was a little tip here. You can put progress or human readable, and that will like, it basically, it chunks your files into a bunch of files, and then it will show you it's like a progress bar, but it's not. Yeah.
Apologies if you went over the story, but does the bucket name have to be globally unique across Kopah?
Yeah, that's right. So sorry if that was not clear. They're unique not within just your group, but every single person that's using Kopah. So there's no one else can make a bucket named demo or milk. Yeah.
And we have a lot of test bucket too.
Yeah. Someone stole that from me. But yeah, that's why like the ID or group name, no one's gonna take that from you. Hopefully. Yeah.
Length limitation to the bucket name?
I know the minimum is 3, but I didn't investigate the length. I've just like,
But like at some point, if you're
Effectively specifying a full path as the bucket name,
you're gonna run out of space theoretically if there's like a limit.
yeah, why would you want to use a path?
Well, so you said that it can support like directory hierarchy.
Yes, right. So you first map into the, I can actually make a quick little demo here. So if I wanted to move like, that's not right. If I want to move directory 1 into the space, I can do that. Oh, what does it want? Oh, I have to put. That's important. Okay, so I've made that nested structure you were talking about where I have demo as the bucket and then dir1, but the name of the bucket is still demo. It's just once I've accessed demo, then I have a set of folders that I can go into. Right, so I still use demo, and demo still shows like all the stuff that exists there.
Is there anything in dir1?
Yeah, we can try. I don't think so. I guess I have an empty dir1 in there. But yeah, directories work, and they don't change the name of your bucket. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I would assume there's plenty of space if you're thinking about maximum. So. And then finally, going a little deeper into put, there's a few things that are interesting that I want to clarify. If you're moving one file, I can say, well, it's called file 1, but when I move it to Kopah, I want it to be called file 3, and that works. But if you're moving multiple files, that doesn't work anymore. And so it's important that when you move, like, for example, with this wildcard, I'm moving 2 of my files, demo doesn't have a prefix after that. So they will move as the name that they are given when I put them. Or they will share a name. And then the second thing is about the prefixes again. If you want to move your files onto Kopah and you want to say, well, I own them, but there's no like easy way to figure out that they're mine, I can add a prefix to all the files. So I call it file 1 locally, but when I move it to Kopah, I'm going to use force and I'm going to put a prefix at the end. And the way I indicate it's a prefix is there's no trailing slash, so it's not a directory. And so if you look at the status or the result, we can see at the corner over there, it's demo dash prefix colon file1.txt. So if I used my group name or my net ID, I've just renamed everything as they move to Kopah, and I've indicated that those are my things and like don't touch them.
So
Yeah.
within your, like, say, for instance, you with the small tenant, which is called terabytes or so, and you make, I don't know, X number, like 5 buckets or something like that.
Yeah.
And that means that each of those 5 buckets could go all the way up to the 12 terabytes, right? Or
It can.
I mean, yes, yeah. And then say you wanted more space, would those existing buckets be able to grow?
Yes.
Okay.
So the condos and the nodes for the condo plans, they're not really, they are physically different things, but they do not function from the user perspective as physically different things. So like increasing your total storage quota is really just as easy as telling us, hey, we want more.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you go into the S5 and then we'll switch over?
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, there's a few other weird things. All you need to know about this slide is it matters if you put a trailing slash or not. That's how S3 command knows if you want to move the directory or if you want to move all the contents of the directory. You can look at these later, and then there's syncing. And the concept of this is really quickly described with unconditional and conditional transfers. So unconditional transfers are what we've been doing so far with puts and gets. Like these just have to happen. A conditional transfer is going to check if something should happen or not. So if I put a file and that file already exists on Kopah, it's not going to overwrite it and put a new one, even though they're identical. And syncing, which is something I think everyone should look into, it takes a little bit more work, is a really easy way to make copies of the data you're using with just one command. And then as we were talking about, everything can be public, everything can be private. And these are the ways that you do that. So access control lists can help you set up like assigned URL. So this link only works for the span of 1 hour and then it's invalid to use. So quick data sharing stays pretty private. And then the best practices for this are to not push your secrets. So make sure that the config file that's in your home directory never gets anywhere. Those access codes and secret keys basically give access to your entire account. So keep those safe, and then make sure that your buckets are private unless necessary, because someone can just like go to a URL and then find all your stuff. And then the augment on S3 command is S5 command, and it's a bigger number, so it's better. These are already installed on Hayek login nodes. Those have the best throughput, so that's where it's recommended for use. You can also use a container if you want to use it on your compute nodes, if you have a script, for example. This configuration is a tiny bit different. It's linked on the documentation. If you look up Hayek S5 command or something on Google, you'll find it as the first thing. It involves the exact same stuff, the same code, same key, but it does something differently. And then the really cool part about S5 command is that it's like way faster. And the reason is it splits up each file into like a set of things it wants to move simultaneously and runs those in parallel. So it basically allows you to take advantage of the throughput that the file system offers. And so like Nam was saying, it was like 100 gigabytes. If you want to move things from Hayek, the Hayek cluster to Kopah, S3 command doesn't make that work. Like it doesn't utilize that full throughput, but S5 will attempt to. And so it's a little weird, but S5 is a smaller one because this is time. And so you want that down. And so like a gigabyte file might take 2 seconds to move with S5 command, which is actually, the ratio is still pretty good there, but it looks a lot better here with 200 seconds as opposed to 500 seconds on a 50 gigabyte file. So transfers are pretty fast. And this is what I've tested between Hayak and Kopah specifically. And then, yeah, you've learned these. Thank you.